There comes a time when the excitement wears off, when the passion you started with begins to flicker and the weight of responsibility feels heavier than the promise you're chasing. That's the moment when most people stop. That's the moment when dreams die. But I need you to hear me. You don't just show up when it's easy. You show up because you're called. The power of showing up, consistency is not built on convenience. It's built on commitment. Some of you are waiting for the perfect conditions before you commit to the process. You say, when I have more time, when I feel motivated, when I see results. But the truth is, the version of you that will fulfill your purpose is waiting on the other side of your discipline. If you only move when you feel like it, you will stay exactly where you are. But when you push yourself, when you force yourself to be consistent, you tap into a power greater than your emotions. Conquering the resistance. Oh, but let's be real, consistency is not sexy. It's not glamorous. It's waking up early when your body says sleep. It's showing up to the gym when your mind says quit. It's writing the book when the words don't flow. Recording the content when no one is watching, praying when it feels like God is silent. The enemy doesn't attack your potential, he attacks your persistence. Because he knows if he can stop you from being consistent, he can keep you from being great. But I dare you to fight back with discipline. Your future is watching, your future self is depending on you to be consistent today. Every time you quit, you push your breakthrough further away. But every time you show up, even when it's hard, you get one step closer to destiny. God does not reward perfection, he rewards faithfulness. And faithfulness looks like consistency, closing call to action. So I challenge you, push past the excuses. Push past the emotions, push past the comfort. Force yourself to be consistent and watch how your life transforms. Because when you keep showing up, one day you won't have to chase success. Success will be chasing you. Now, who's ready to be consistent? There will be days when you don't feel like showing up. Days when your body is tired, your mind is cluttered, and your spirit feels drained. Days when your dreams seem too far away and your efforts feel unseen. And in those moments, the temptation to quit will be louder than the call to continue. But let me tell you something, consistency is not about how you feel. It's about the discipline to move forward, even when everything inside of you is telling you to stop. Feelings are fickle. They change with the weather, shift with your circumstances, and bow to your emotions. One day you feel motivated, and the next day you don't. One day you feel excited about your vision, and the next you're questioning why you even started. If you allow your feelings to determine your actions, you will live a life of inconsistency, starting and stopping, building and abandoning, dreaming and doubting. But when you make up your mind that your commitment is stronger than your emotions, that's when you step into the power of true discipline. Discipline says, I show up even when I don't feel like it. Discipline says, I keep pushing even when I don't see results. Discipline says, I don't wait to be inspired. I move because I'm called. See, discipline isn't just about doing something repeatedly. It's about doing it with intention. It's about understanding that every act of consistency is a seed being planted for your future. When a farmer sows a seed, he doesn't see immediate results. He doesn't dig up the soil the next day looking for a harvest. He trusts the process. He waters the ground. He nurtures what he cannot yet see because he understands that growth happens beneath the surface before it ever manifests above. That's how consistency works. Every small action, every disciplined choice, every step forward is a seed. The results may not be visible today, but something is growing beneath the surface. And if you keep watering it with discipline, one day you'll wake up to the harvest of everything you've been working for. But most people don't make it to the harvest because they quit in the process. They let their emotions dictate their actions. They stop showing up when the excitement fades. They walk away when it gets hard. And then they wonder why they never reach their goals. The truth is, success doesn't belong to the most talented or the most passionate. It belongs to the most consistent. Think about the people who inspire you, the ones who have built something meaningful, the ones who have achieved great things. It wasn't just their talent that got them there. It was their ability to keep going when it was hard, to keep moving when there was no applause, to stay committed even when no one was watching. Consistency is what separates wishful thinking from real manifestation. You don't just hope for change, you discipline yourself into transformation. You don't just dream about success, you work toward it daily, even when progress feels invisible. Because the truth is, consistency is hard. It requires sacrifice. It requires doing things when you'd rather rest. It requires pushing past frustration, ignoring distractions, and silencing self-doubt. But the beauty of discipline is that it becomes your strength. The more you practice consistency, the less you rely on motivation. The more you show up, the easier it becomes. Your body adjusts, your mind strengthens, and your spirit aligns with your purpose. Before you know it, what once felt like a struggle becomes second nature. What once required effort becomes a lifestyle. And that's when you know you're truly walking in purpose, not when it's easy, but when it's automatic. When discipline has taken root so deeply that quitting is no longer an option. So today I challenge you, stop waiting to feel ready. Stop depending on motivation to carry you. Stop allowing your emotions to dictate your progress. Make a decision that discipline will be your guide, that you will show up no matter what, that you will push through no matter how you feel. Because at the end of the day, your success won't be built on how inspired you were. It will be built on how consistent you chose to be. We live in a world that glorifies instant success. Everywhere you look, people are celebrating the big wins, the overnight transformations, and the sudden breakthroughs. But what they don't always show you is the process, the small, unseen steps that led to those big victories. The truth is, greatness is not built in a single moment. It is built in the quiet, uncelebrated decisions made every single day. There is power in the small steps, the little actions that seem insignificant at first. The daily choices that feel mundane, those are the very things that create the foundation for something greater. But the problem is, too many people overlook the process. They want the results without the repetition. They want the transformation without the discipline. And when they don't see immediate results, they quit, not realizing that they were closer to their breakthrough than they thought. A mountain is not conquered in a single leap. It is climbed step by step, one foot in front of the other, even when the summit feels impossibly far away. And that's exactly how success works. It's the small, consistent actions that stack up over time, creating momentum that eventually leads to a breakthrough. Every time you take a step forward, no matter how small, you are getting closer to what you've been praying for, hoping for, and working toward. But the enemy of progress is impatience. We want to see results immediately. We want the confirmation that what we're doing is working. And when we don't see that confirmation right away, we start to doubt the process. We question if we're even on the right path. We wonder if our efforts are in vain. But let me tell you something. Just because you don't see progress doesn't mean it's not happening. Just because the results aren't visible yet doesn't mean the work is wasted. Think about a seed planted in the ground. For weeks, sometimes months, nothing seems to be happening. You water it, you care for it, but there's no visible sign of growth. But beneath the surface, something is shifting. Roots are taking hold, the foundation is being built, and then one day when the time is right, that seed breaks through the soil and begins to grow into what it was meant to be. That's how your process works. You may not see the fruits of your labor yet, but something is happening beneath the surface. Every small action you take is strengthening your foundation. Every small step forward is positioning you for the breakthrough that is coming. Some of the most successful people in the world didn't start with big wins. They started with small, intentional steps. The author who wrote a bestseller started with just one sentence a day. The entrepreneur who built a thriving business started by making one small decision at a time. The athlete who became a champion started by showing up to practice, even on the days when they didn't feel like it. Consistency in the small things is what prepares you for the big things. If you can be faithful in the little, you will be trusted with more. If you can master the daily habits, you will be ready for the bigger opportunities when they come. But if you dismiss the small steps as unimportant, you will never reach the big breakthroughs you desire. Too often, people get discouraged because they feel like their progress is too slow. They compare their journey to others who seem to be moving faster. They think if they're not making giant leaps, they're not making any progress at all. But speed is not what determines success. Consistency is. Some of the greatest accomplishments took years to build, but they started with a single step. So today I challenge you to stop underestimating the power of the small steps. Stop looking for shortcuts and start embracing the process. Keep showing up, keep doing the work, keep moving forward, even when it feels slow, because one day you'll look back and realize that all those small steps led you to the big breakthrough you've been waiting for. Comfort feels good, it's familiar, it's safe, and it doesn't demand much from you. It allows you to stay where you are without the pressure of growth, without the discomfort of stretching, without the weight of responsibility. But here's the problem. Nothing great has ever been birthed from comfort. Comfort is the enemy of progress because it convinces you that where you are is good enough, even when you were created for more. Progress demands movement. It requires you to step into the unknown, to embrace challenges, to push past the limits of what feels easy. But too often, people choose comfort over calling, ease over elevation, familiarity over fulfillment. They settle for what is rather than fight for what could be. And in doing so, they rob themselves of their own potential. The truth is, every time you refuse to step outside of your comfort zone, you delay your progress. Every time you choose the path of least resistance, you prolong your breakthrough. Growth is uncomfortable because it forces you to face your fears, to challenge your excuses, and to confront the parts of yourself that need to change. But if you avoid that discomfort, you also avoid the transformation that comes with it. Some people pray for progress, but they are unwilling to embrace the process that comes with it. They want success, but they don't want struggle. They want elevation, but they don't want to endure the stretching. But you cannot grow and stay the same. You cannot ask God to take you higher while refusing to let go of what is holding you back. Progress demands sacrifice, and comfort will always fight against that sacrifice. Think about a butterfly. Before it can fly, it has to go through the process of transformation inside a cocoon. That process is dark, isolating, and uncomfortable, but without it, the butterfly would never develop the strength it needs to fly. Now imagine if the butterfly decided that the cocoon was comfortable. Imagine if it chose to stay in the familiar instead of pushing through the struggle. It would never experience the fullness of what it was created to be. That's what comfort does. It keeps you in a cocoon when you were designed to fly. It convinces you that the pain of stretching is too much, so you settle for less than your purpose. It tells you that failure is too risky, so you never take the leap of faith. It whispers that you have time, so you procrastinate your calling. And before you know it, years pass and you're still in the same place, wondering why nothing has changed. But here's the good news. You don't have to stay stuck. You don't have to let comfort rob you of your destiny. The moment you decide to embrace discomfort is the moment you step into progress. The moment you stop waiting for the perfect conditions is the moment you start moving toward your breakthrough. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to feel ready. You just have to be willing to move, willing to take the first step, willing to show up even when it's hard, willing to trust that growth is happening even when it's painful, because on the other side of discomfort is everything you've been praying for. Some of the most successful people in the world didn't get there because it was easy. They got there because they refused to let comfort stop them. They chose to wake up early when sleep felt better. They chose to keep going when quitting felt easier. They chose to embrace rejection, failure, and struggle because they understood that nothing worth having comes without a fight. So ask yourself, where has comfort been holding you back? What have you been avoiding because it feels too hard? What dreams have you put on hold because stepping out in faith feels too risky? It's time to break free from the limits of comfort. It's time to push past the excuses, the fears, and the doubts. It's time to step boldly into the progress that is waiting for you. Because one day, you will either look back with pride at how far you've come, or you will look back with regret at how comfort kept you stuck. The choice is yours. Commitment is easy when everything is going well. It's easy to stay dedicated when the results are showing, when the motivation is high, when the support is strong. But what happens when the excitement fades? What happens when progress slows down, when obstacles show up, when you no longer feel the fire you started with? That's when real commitment is tested. That's when you find out whether you were committed to the process or just committed to the feeling. Commitment doesn't come with an expiration date. It's not something you hold on to when it's convenient and walk away from when it's hard. If you truly want to reach the next level, if you truly want to see growth, if you truly want to become who you were created to be, then you have to decide that your commitment is not up for negotiation. Too many people start strong but give up the moment things don't go as planned. They commit to the dream but not to the discipline. They commit to the results but not to the responsibility. And when things don't move fast enough, when the struggle becomes real, they begin to question everything. But listen to me, just because the process is difficult doesn't mean the promise has changed. Just because you're facing challenges doesn't mean your calling has expired. Just because it's taking longer than you expected doesn't mean it's not working. The problem is we live in a world that makes quitting look acceptable. If something doesn't come easily, we're told to move on. If we don't see instant results, we assume it wasn't meant to be. But that's not how commitment works. That's not how greatness is built. Look at any successful person, whether it's an entrepreneur, an athlete, an artist, or a leader. They didn't get to where they are because they felt committed every day. They got there because they made a decision that their commitment wasn't based on their emotions. They kept pushing when it was hard. They kept working when no one was watching. They kept believing when doubt tried to creep in. And because they refused to quit, they eventually saw the results they were working for. You have to stop treating your commitment like it's optional. Stop saying you're committed when it's convenient and walking away when it gets uncomfortable. Stop expecting big breakthroughs when you're only willing to give halfway effort. The things you are praying for, the things you are working toward, the things you are dreaming of, they require a level of commitment that doesn't waver when things get tough. You don't get to pick and choose when you're dedicated. You don't get to be all in on Monday and give up by Friday. You don't get to start strong and then walk away when the process doesn't match your expectations. Your commitment has to be stronger than your circumstances. If you only stay consistent when life is easy, you will never see the fullness of what's possible for you. If you only stay dedicated when people are applauding you, you will never develop the strength that true commitment requires. You have to show up even when no one else does. You have to keep building even when the progress is slow. You have to keep believing even when nothing seems to be happening. Because commitment isn't about how you feel, it's about what you decided. Think about an athlete training for a championship. They don't stop working just because they don't feel like it. They don't skip practice just because they're tired. They don't give up just because they lost a game. They stay committed to the process because they know that every single day of work is getting them closer to their goal. And that's how you have to approach your life, your dreams, and your purpose. You didn't come this far just to quit when it got hard. You didn't start this journey just to walk away when it got uncomfortable. You didn't pray for this opportunity just to throw it away because it's taking longer than you expected. Commitment means staying the course. It means continuing to show up, continuing to grow, continuing to trust the process no matter what. So ask yourself, where have you been treating your commitment like it has an expiration date? Where have you allowed excuses to weaken your dedication? Where have you let emotions override your discipline? It's time to make a new decision. A decision that your commitment is non-negotiable. A decision that no matter how long it takes, no matter how hard it gets, you will not give up. Because the ones who stay committed are the ones who see the breakthrough. And if you keep going, you will be one of them. Every decision you make today is shaping the person you are becoming. Every habit you build, every action you take, every moment of discipline or lack of it, it's all creating the version of you that will exist in the future. You may not realize it now, but your future self is watching, waiting to see whether you will choose growth or comfort, progress or procrastination, commitment or convenience. We often think of the future as something far away, something we will figure out later. But the truth is, your future isn't built in one grand moment. It's built in the small choices you make every single day. The future version of you, the one with success, the one walking in purpose, the one living the life you dream of, doesn't just appear out of nowhere. That person is formed through your present day actions. But too many people live like the future doesn't matter. They waste time assuming they'll have more of it later. They put off their goals assuming they'll feel ready someday. They break promises to themselves thinking it won't really make a difference. But what they don't realize is that every moment of inconsistency, every excuse, every delay is stealing from the person they are supposed to become. Think about it. If you met your future self 5 years from now, would you be proud of the choices you're making today? Would you be able to look that version of yourself in the eyes and say, I did everything I could to get us here? Or would you have to admit that you let distractions, laziness, and fear keep you from becoming who you were meant to be? Your future self is watching. Watching whether you choose discipline or let comfort win. Watching whether you stay committed or give up when it gets hard. Watching whether you take the risks necessary to grow or stay trapped in fear. Every time you hit snooze on your potential, every time you take the easy route instead of the right one, every time you tell yourself, I'll start tomorrow, your future self takes a step further away from the life you were meant to have. Success is not about waiting for the perfect moment, it's about taking action, even when it's inconvenient. Growth is not about feeling ready, it's about deciding that your dreams matter too much to put on hold. The version of you that is thriving, successful, walking in purpose, that version is counting on you to do the work now. Because if you don't, that version of you may never exist. Think about someone you admire, someone who has achieved what you hope to achieve. Do you think they got there by waiting until they felt motivated? Do you think they built their future by making excuses? No, they got there by making choices that honor their future by sacrificing temporary comfort for long-term success. And that's exactly what you have to do. You have to make decisions that your future self will thank you for. You have to stop looking for shortcuts and start committing to the process. You have to stop treating your potential like it's optional. Your future is watching, and the choices you make today will either set you up for success or set you back. The time is going to pass anyway. 5 years from now, you will either be celebrating the progress you made or regretting the time you wasted. And that choice is entirely up to you. The late nights, the early mornings, the hard work, the sacrifices, they will all pay off if you stay committed. But if you quit, if you delay, if you let your present self make weak decisions, your future self will pay the price. So I ask you, what kind of future do you want to create? One filled with joy, success, and fulfillment? Or one filled with regret, wondering what could have been? Because whether you realize it or not, your future self is watching. Make sure they're watching someone who refuses to give up, who refuses to settle, who refuses to be anything less than everything they were created to be. Don't let your future self down. God does not bless inconsistency, does not pour favor over those who start and stop, who commit one day and quit the next, who pray for opportunity but refuse to put in the work. He honors the ones who show up, the ones who stay faithful, the ones who keep pressing forward even when no one is watching. We live in a world that glorifies quick results. People want success overnight, breakthroughs without battle, and elevation without endurance. But God operates differently. He is not moved by how fast you start. He is moved by how faithfully you continue. Too many people quit right before their breakthrough because they get discouraged by the process. They think because they don't see results yet, God isn't working. But just because you don't see movement doesn't mean God isn't moving. Consistency is a test of faith. It's easy to keep going when everything is falling into place, when the doors are opening, when the progress is obvious. But what do you do when nothing seems to be changing? What do you do when you've been working, praying, believing, and still the results seem far away? That's when God is watching. That's when your faith is truly tested. Because real faith isn't proven in the moments when everything is going right. It's proven in the moments when you have every reason to give up but choose to keep going anyway. God is looking for people he can trust. If he can trust you to be faithful in the small things, he can bless you with bigger things. But if you can't stay consistent where you are now, how can he elevate you to the next level? Some of us are waiting for God to show us the full picture before we move, but God is waiting for us to be faithful with what he has already placed in our hands. Think about the story of Noah. God told him to build an ark when there was no sign of rain. Day after day he worked, staying obedient to the process even when people around him doubted. He didn't wait for evidence. He stayed consistent in what God told him to do. And because of that faithfulness, when the rain finally came, Noah was ready. Some of you are waiting for the rain to come before you start building. But God is saying, if you would just be faithful now, if you would just stay consistent, even when it doesn't make sense, I will make sure you're prepared for what's coming. We love to ask God for blessings, but blessings require stewardship. If you're asking for more, are you handling what you already have well? If you're praying for opportunities, are you preparing for them, or are you waiting for things to be easy? God is not going to give elevation to someone who can't handle the responsibility that comes with it. Consistency is proof that you are ready. Some of the greatest breakthroughs happen in the moments when you feel like giving up, but choose to keep going anyway. That's where growth happens. That's where strength is built. That's where faith is refined. If you only stay committed when it's easy, you will never see the fullness of what God has for you. You have to be willing to keep showing up, keep doing the work, keep believing even when you don't feel like it, even when no one is clapping for you, even when it looks like nothing is happening. Because God sees you. He sees your effort. He sees your effort. He sees your faithfulness. He sees the late nights, the early mornings, the moments when you wanted to quit but didn't. And he honors that. The world may not reward consistency right away, but God does. He is not asking for perfection. He is asking for persistence. He is not expecting you to never struggle. He is expecting you to never give up. And if you keep going, if you keep trusting, if you keep being faithful, even when it's hard, there will come a day when you look back and realize that God was building something greater in you all along. So don't get weary. Don't lose heart. Don't allow the delay to convince you that it's not working. Stay consistent, stay faithful, stay in position, because when God sees that you can be trusted in the process, he will release the promise. And when that moment comes, you'll realize it was never about how fast you got there. It was about how faithful you remained along the way.